Hey everybody, this is Andrea Paquette, the president and co-founder of the Stigma-Free Society. I just want to welcome everybody here on this Thursday, and we are super excited at the Stigma-Free Society for our guest today. Jason Finucan, is that how you say it correctly?
Close. It's actually Jason Finucan.
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 Wow, I was way off.
Yeah, that's all right. Most people do not get my name right.
Yeah. But it's a really good last name. I like it. So I was just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us here today. And how you doing today?
It's really my pleasure, and I'm other than the very gray and snowy weather outside, I'm doing fine.
And where are you located?
I am just outside of Montreal, Quebec.
Nice. I love Montreal. Oh, Montreal, right?
City,
excellent. So I'm just going to share your bio with everybody to give them a nice background about who you are, okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
So one of the things I actually first saw was your book. And that's how we got connected initially a couple of years ago. So for your bio, Jason is an author of the book called Jason 1 and then Stigma-Zero, My Battle with Mental Illness at Home and in the Workplace. He's a mental health advocate, stigma fighter, professional speaker, and founder of StigmaZero, instructor of the programs found within StigmaZero Online Training Academy. He's been doing this for how long?
Gosh, professionally since 2015, but as a mental health advocate since 2006.
Amazing. Yeah, you have a lot of really great experiences to share today. So I'm excited about that because it says here, Jason has faced both physical and mental illness. And he shares his personal experiences with impactful storytelling techniques blended with rigorous research in order to mobilize knowledge and perspective. His goal is for everyone to understand this important topic so they are empowered to make a real change and ultimately join his vision for a future without stigma. This is a mental health movement, and by making this a difficult and interesting topic, make it accessible, consumable as well. Jason hopes you will be a part of it. He has his website at StigmaZero.com for more information. And that is about it for your bio. That's really impressive. So once again, thanks for being here. I was wondering, you have a personal story, and I always really love to start with personal stories. And I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself. You mentioned in your bio physical and mental illness, and I was wondering if you can shed some light on that.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. The way I like to say it is that I developed the skills needed to do the work I'm doing, both professionally and as a volunteer mental health advocate, by complete accident, which I think is true for most of us, really, who do this kind of work. But it was just this series of unique and cumulative experiences, the first of which was a heart defect I had when I was only 12 years old. It started when I was 9 years old. The symptoms of it did. And the symptoms were not life-threatening, but they were very uncomfortable. I had tachycardia, which means your heart races out of nowhere and for no reason. It races, mine was up to 200 beats a minute for up to 45 minutes at a time. So it was almost like having epilepsy, in that when the tachycardia happened, everything had to stop. I had to lie down and just wait it out. And as I went through that process, then was diagnosed with what it was called Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. It was a nerve defect in my heart. And they explained that they could fix it through open heart surgery, which is what I had done at 12.
Wow. How old were you then, Jason?
12 and a half.
Oh, wow.
I was just a little boy. I actually think of it as incredible what my parents went through. My mom slept in a cot in the room that I was in at the hospital for 3 straight weeks. Just dedication and support. But this is the thing that I only learned later, was I learned what it's like to have a major illness in our society that does not have stigma attached to it. Because no one questions a little boy with a bad heart. No one questions that boy's work ethic, or is he crying wolf? Nobody thinks I'm trying to skip school when I miss 3 months of school. My teachers understand all of that. And I lived all that. I had tons of support and love and everything you would expect a young boy going through such an experience. And it was very formative because when in my 20s, I began experiencing a mental illness, which is bipolar disorder, but I did not know that for 2.5 years. I wasn't diagnosed. I was just riding this wave of symptoms. I had no clue what they were. The difference was there was now stigma attached, and it started with me. I'm the first to admit I was part of the problem that I am now dedicating my life to fixing, which is that I had people in my life who struggled with depression, namely my mother. She had very serious clinical depression for years, and I flat out thought it was a personality thing. She was not as hard a worker as my dad. She wasn't as strong as my dad, for example. And it was never explained to me properly. So when it happened to me, the first thought I had was, well, I'm a hardworking person and I can work my way through anything that is emotional. I have no trouble talking with people about something I'm upset over. So I'm going to just work my way through this. But what I was trying to work my way through was bipolar disorder, which is a very serious biochemical imbalance in the brain and a very serious mental illness that needs treatment. And I didn't see that for years. So that was the first big difference. And the second was, of course, the workplace. How did I feel about it at work? Well, I felt ashamed. I was afraid. I was afraid of revealing my symptoms and my illness. I experienced stigma in the workplace. Most of it was unintentional or sort of side effect stigma, not so much direct discrimination, but there was some. And the net result when I finished that whole process and was finally diagnosed with bipolar and was treated properly and began to live well again, I looked back at the whole experience and I asked a very simple question of myself. What would have happened if my heart problem had come back instead of this new illness of bipolar disorder? In my 20s, my heart problem comes back. I immediately tell my employer. I have absolutely no shame. I immediately seek medical attention. If I need another surgery, I get it. And if I miss work, I deal with it. But no one is worried about me, the person, being judged. Not me and not other people. And that's when it struck me. That's when I had the same epiphany moment you had, which is that the problem, of course, is mental illness is incredibly challenging. But the only problem we really can solve is this social stigma that is still around it. If we remove that, then everything becomes so much more simple. And that was the realization that got me going.
Amazing. And as you talk about stigma too, there's like that self-stigma, as like you were talking about, that shame and that social, and then the structural stigma, those three, right? And that's how I always understand stigma myself. And that structural is what's in workplaces. And as you know, there is a lot of stigma still. And I was curious, can you share an experience where you faced stigma personally, perhaps in the workplace? What was your reaction? How did it make you feel?
That's a great question. And I usually tell what I call the get well card incident story.
Yeah.
So I went on, once my illness really began to manifest quite seriously near the end of the period where I was in denial, I ended up having a very severe depressive episode that lasted multiple weeks. And when I say severe, I mean like 23 hours a day I was laying down. I couldn't do anything. I was like a zombie. I was completely shut off. And then I bounced out of that, aided by an antidepressant that was the wrong one for somebody with bipolar, it turned out. I jumped directly into a manic episode. And the manic episode that I experienced was 6 days long, absolutely no sleep, and ended in a hospitalization as a result. I was in the hospital for 3 weeks with that. So when you go through that, you're clearly going to need some time off work. And I did. I needed 11 months, it turned out. Yeah. I received a get well card from my colleagues 6 months into my 12 or 11 month leave. And when that was the first acknowledgement from my employer that I was even sick, other than the insurance side of things. And when I got the card, it was a very simple, small get well card. And it just said, we miss you, get well. But it was signed by everybody on my team by only their first names. There were no comments, no notes written. Now think through that just for a second and think of any time you've been sick and received a get well card.
Everyone has a message usually.
Exactly. It's just natural human behavior.
Yeah.
Now, why they didn't is not because they were malicious or trying to hurt me. Of course not. They were affected by stigma and fear, and they just didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
They didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
And they weren't trained on what to say.
Yeah.
So the second half of this story that is pretty interesting is that I returned to work after 11 months, integrated back, no problem. It was a little difficult, of course, but I succeeded through the integration. And then another colleague of ours became very ill with a virus, and he was in the hospital with that virus over the Christmas holidays. When we came back, there was a card for everyone to sign for this man, which was lovely. And I was very happy to go and add my signature to it. Well, the card was about the size of a dinner table, and it had an insert because there was so many people who had written so many notes, and I added my note, and, dear Dawn, I really hope you get better soon. Miss you. This place isn't the same without you. Signed, Jason. And then I walked away. And as I walked back to my office, this anger just kind of rose in me, and I didn't know why at first. And then it hit me. What the hell is the difference? I was off on what felt life-threatening to me. I didn't know when I was going to get better. I was in a very difficult state, and I didn't receive any kind of actual empathy, really. And then this man did. Now, is it because it's him versus me? Nope, not at all. It's because his illness made sense to people. Mine didn't. His illness had no stigma. Mine did. That's an example of the stigma that I experienced. And it was one of the many examples in the workplace that I try to help companies to overcome now, so that they can handle stigma around mental illness in the same way that they already are handling sexism and racism in the workplace. These are complex problems, but they can be dealt with if they're dealt with properly.
Definitely, I agree. I once wrote a blog about returning to the workplaces. I, as well, took 6 months off to heal from depression with my bipolar disorder. And I felt like when I came back to work, like no one even said anything. And it was like this, everyone just seemed very quiet. And one of the things I wrote in my blog is people, when they generally come back to work after a breakdown or anything of the sort with mental health, it's nice to be recognized and just say, hey, how you doing?
Welcome back.
Yeah. Or something simple. It really doesn't have to be very much, That's how I feel anyway.
I couldn't agree more. One of the things I suggest, actually, because it's so easy to do, is a workstation, whatever that is. That could be a closed office or it could be a cubicle. Wherever you were working, if you're gone for 6-7 months, often stuff gets put there. And that's okay while you're gone. But before you return, that office should be cleaned. Everything should be removed except for what was yours.
Yeah.
And you should have a little bouquet of flowers, maybe, so a plant.
Yeah, nice gesture. Yeah.
Welcome back, and it's been signed by your colleagues. It's easy to do, but people become very scared of doing the wrong thing, that they end up doing nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And so these experiences obviously catapulted you into action. And this is the part I really want to discuss. So tell me about StigmaZero, what you founded this organization, what you do for workplaces. Can you shed some light on that and share?
I can. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to start a little earlier, just because the genesis is very important. How it happened. After I had that epiphany that, hey, you know what? Stigma is the problem we can solve. We can do something about it. I've always been a comfortable public speaker. That's just one of my things. So I knew that was available to me. And I had a story. And I thought, what if I can start sharing that story as a way to help others? And I did that through a local Montreal-based organization called AMI Quebec, which exists to support caregivers and consumers facing mental illness. So in every way, to learn about it, to just help. And they had an outreach program, and I became one of their volunteers who would go speak to schools, colleges, universities, and companies. And I did over 40 free keynotes from 2006 to 2014 to thousands of people. And that's how I learned oh, you know what? My story and my perspective on this is resonating with people. It is of interest and it is helpful. And some of the most humbling things that happened were when people would come up after my keynotes and say, you know, I think I've been depressed for over a year, but I didn't know what it was. And now that you've described it, I understand it and I'm going to go get help. Like, that's amazing. If you can help somebody to overcome, that's the whole reason I do what I do. So after doing that, I have to give full credit to my wife. I am entrepreneurial, but I am not an entrepreneur. Not at my heart. I really just don't think that way. And it was my wife who said, I've seen what you're doing. It's having an effect. You should do this as a business. You really should start offering training. And I agreed with her and finally decided to take the leap in 2015. So I founded this company called StigmaZero, which exists very specifically to train workplaces at all levels. So the employee, manager, and then HR and senior leader levels, how to better respond to mental illness in the workplace and how to eradicate stigma. And how to do so in a systematic way through training, through procedures, through protocols, through better policies, through EAP reviews, things like that. And so we offer this suite of services, and it started out just as me delivering in-person workshops and keynotes. And then we had some clients who basically were large enough that they said, look, we like what you're doing, but can't have you train everybody live. It's just not feasible. So we were asked to create an online version of our program, which we did, launched that in January of 2018. And now we have both offerings that we can give to any client, a sort of a hybrid of live training or webinar-based training, but also an online program that can be onboarded almost immediately. It's very easy to roll out because it exists. And we can customize that online training, and it covers the entire range of what you need to know in the workplace to improve this. So mental health literacy, of course, is the foundation of it all, understanding what is mental health, mental illness, what is stigma, why does it exist? Then going into how do we build our empathy and our emotional intelligence. Those are the two most important skills to be able to deal with something you don't understand because you've never felt with it. You need to be able to use your emotional intelligence to imagine it, and then you need to use your empathy. And so that's an important part of our program. And then we go into situational training, like right down to what if this happens, what do you do? And then we give the exact best case scenario response. Then we move into the manager's needs, which is very specific. I mean, I feel sorry for managers out there. They're good at their job, so they get promoted, they become a manager, and now they have to worry about the mental health of their team members. How many of them aren't trained to do this, and nor should they be. So the companies, I believe it's the company's responsibility to give that training to their HR and to their managers so that those managers, when they see a team member struggling, can begin the process of having a positive conversation with that individual and not go into this legal, scary sort of the way sometimes companies treat mental illness is almost combative from the beginning. Yes. And it just doesn't need to be. Yeah. And all of these little tricks I've been giving you about the way you can welcome someone back to work and the way to handle a get well card, all the way to how do you send an email to your entire company that Jason is no longer with the company, or Jason is on a medical leave of absence because of illness. We don't know when he'll be back. We'll keep you posted. How do you send that email in a way that doesn't stoke the stigma, that doesn't actually add fuel to that fire? There's ways to do this. And so this is the idea behind the training. Is we call it create your StigmaZero workplace, meaning if you go through the training across the whole company and you apply everything that's in it on a consistent basis, you can change your culture to one where stigma cannot exist. It just won't. It'll fade away. And that is something any company can achieve. It just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of investment in not only the training, but the effort to reinforce the training.
Yeah. Well, in the face of COVID-19 right now, it's pretty interesting how the majority of our offerings, as you say, are online. And yes. I was wondering, what are you doing during this time? What are you offering? What are your current training courses? Tell me about what you can offer businesses, organizations, nonprofits, people right now.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to do that. So first and foremost, what we are able to offer is to the organization, the business. It doesn't matter what type of business you are. It just matters that you are a workplace. Okay. If you're a workplace, we have everything you need to train your entire workforce on this topic. And we're able to implement that right away, from a launch keynote, which I deliver live via webinar now, obviously with COVID. But I deliver the launch keynote and then allow the client to record it so that they have that in the bank. And everyone watches that before they log into the training. So it helps provide context. So that's what we have currently. What we're working on that will be coming out very soon. In the next week, we'll be announcing several dates of virtual HR workshops that are aimed directly at HR individuals, HR professionals, all the way from generalists to the C-suite. And it is the workshop is called the Complete HR Strategy to Improve Your Employees' Mental Health. So it is a version of our online training, but it's a 4-hour live workshop that is on a particular date at a particular time.
Wow. As you know, mental health is top of mind right now, especially with COVID, and so many people are suffering, and there's a lot of mental health issues that are being cultivated in a very negative way. And I feel that your training, especially with a lot of staff being at home, would really benefit the entire culture of a business.
Yes, 100%. And one of the things we say to people, the benefits of moving towards a stigma-free workplace are very similar to the benefits of moving towards a workplace free of sexism or racism, because those are things that can be very clouded. They can cloud the culture of an organization, and they can make people resent each other and be afraid of whether their hard work is going to be recognized. It's the same thing with stigma. Now, when you move away from it, you will increase productivity from the team you have. You will reduce presenteeism, which is very specific to any mental illness. People try to work through them like I did, and they end up working at 60% capacity for 2 years or something. So you reducing presenteeism is a massive part of it. But then, of course, there's improved company culture, attract top talent, retain top talent. People want to stay and work at a place that is taking care of its employees. And employees view our training as a very positive sign by their company that their company is investing in them. And that is very important. The other two things we're offering soon, probably within the next 3 months, will be a manager-specific live workshop, as well as offering HR-specific online training that can be purchased as an individual. So the bulk of the way that we've sold our product so far has been enterprise. We're dealing with the company and we're rolling out the training to the entire company. But what we're realizing is many HR professionals are out there, and they don't yet know if they're ready to roll such a training out, but they do have the ability to take it just for themselves. Or a manager might want to learn for themselves and have a professional development budget. So we're trying to offer essentially a B2C, but it's for business. And so that'll be coming very shortly. And then on the heels of that, something we are so excited to do is a direct B2C. So consumers in the workplace, regardless of where you are, where you work, you will be able to, at a reasonable price, buy our online program or version of our online program and just buy it, take it, and learn. And so that is the final offering. All of this, our plan is to have all of this launched by March of 2021.
Ambitious. That's awesome. I love it. I like getting things done, as I know you do too, and just getting information out there in a timely manner when people really need assistance, support, and help. So thank you for what you do with StigmaZero. I love it. And tell us about your book.
Thank you.
When did you write it? I also know you have it in audio version with your own voice, and you felt like it was really important. That's a hard thing to do, voiceovers and things. And I really would love to hear a little bit about your book.
Yeah, I'm happy to share it because it was a wonderful experience. First, I want to share the how I broke the barrier of just even thinking I would write a book. When I was founding the company, before I had actually done it, I pulled together a dinner party of really the smartest people I knew. And I basically said, this is what I'm thinking. This is where I want to go. Do you think it's viable? Like I wanted their advice before it was like a focus group. And one of the things that came out of the focus group was when somebody said, this is viable, yes, yes, and when are you going to write a book and tell your story in a book? And I looked at them all and I said, do you think that that's a good idea? And they just looked at me like that was the stupidest question ever. Like, yes, you should do this. So it just gave me the confidence that doing so was the right move. And because I didn't want to write a book about me for me. That's not why I wrote it. I shared my story in the book because I knew it was an easy way for people to have access to it and hopefully benefit from it. And, you know, you can pass a book on to people and say, hey, this might help you. And it's happened. So that was how it all started. Then I started writing it. I wrote it, and I had an editor that I had met about a year earlier at a conference. And I liked her, and I said to her, if I ever write a book, I want to work with you. And so I just contacted her, found out what the process was, and she did 3 rounds of editing. And then I worked with Friesen Press. I went with them, the self-publishing option. They were fantastic. I found that their package, what they offered you and what they delivered was all very clear. And I felt that they delivered on their promises completely. The picture on the cover, I'm very proud of. It was my idea, actually, to come up with a close-up half-face picture. And then I found a local Montreal photographer named Fanny Ducharme who just killed it. She was so good in that session taking that photo. And then when the book was done, you know, just to get it out there and see what people thought of it, what makes me happy is most people say that the book reads like a page turner. They can't put it down. That's thrilling as a writer to know that that worked. But as a mental health advocate, what I love is not one copy of my book that I'm aware of has stayed with the person that bought it because they just keep passing it on to somebody else because that person might need it. And that is so lovely to know that that message is getting out there. You talked about the audio book.
Yeah, the audio.
That was really important. It was important to me because it's my story told in the first person. I'm a good speaker. Why wouldn't I be the one narrating it? It just didn't make sense to me to have anybody else do it. And I found a studio in Montreal that actually their main business is recording musical artists. But on the side, when they're not full, they do audiobooks. And they've been doing them for a while. And so I found good reviews of other people who've done their audiobooks there. And it was a flat cost. It paid a fee. And I spent basically a day in the studio recording, and then it was they did the rest. So it was a pleasant and frankly kind of a fun experience.
Nice. I've been writing my memoir forever, and then I was gaining a lot of traction on it. I have like 150 pages written. I want to be very detailed for myself. So you really inspire me to get it done and to do that audio piece, and that's really a dream of mine. That I really look up to you on that. So yeah, congrats on getting that book done.
I'm glad to hear you're going to do the audio as well, because your story is so important and so it's riveting. What you went through is an important thing for people to hear, and it's got to come from your voice. It just has to.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And as well, did you find that at all it was a little healing for you to really write that? Do you feel you're still in that space where, like, for me, I feel like, honestly, like I get a little piece of my heart back, which still hurts sometimes when I'm doing presentations to the youth in schools. Sometimes I still feel that, that real healing. And I was wondering, like, how do you feel about that?
It's a very good point. I don't want to split hairs, but I sort of have to, because the way that I process trauma in my life, the way that I always have processed trauma is very, I don't procrastinate. So if something happens to me that's difficult, I basically mull it over, talk it over, get help if I need it, until I feel like it's in a box and I can put it on a shelf. Not to say that I'm burying it. I'll go and look at it. But it's not as painful to look at because I've organized it. It's just the way my brain works. So in that sense, I wouldn't describe the book or my talking as purely therapeutic, but here's what it is. It gives me, every time I do it, it gives me a very palpable reassurance that, I have come to this place from wherever I was. So when when you're manic and you're at the lowest point of depression, you feel very, very small compared to your full self. You feel like you've been reduced to this sort of archetype almost. And being, you're manic and you're depressed, and it's almost like you're no longer Jason or Andrea. You're that thing. When you're healthy, you feel like the full person who happened to have lived that experience. And that's a very healthy place to be while you're managing a mental illness. And my work definitely reinforces that every day I do it. And in that sense,
I totally get it too, because it's like when we're doing our work, it's for me personally as well, like look how far we've come, and it feels really good giving a presentation, and I love helping people find help just like you. So it's sometimes we go through experiences, and it's what you take out of it and what you are going to do with it in your future. So creating an impacting organization, Jason, and everything you've done, I really, really admire you. So thank you for coming today. One last thing I want to say is Jason and I were both on the CBC documentary, You Can't Ask That. What's episode was that? 7 or season 2?
And it's called Bipolar Disorder.
Yeah, there you go. It's called Bipolar Disorder Season 2. And we would love for you to check it out. Jason's in there being a really amazing educational authority, I really felt, in that documentary. So that was really cool to be in that with you.
It was so fun because as your viewers may not realize that, we do know each other. We met and our obviously our trajectories are incredibly parallel. I love it. I feel like we're on the opposite sides of the country doing the same kind of good work. Slightly different, but very, the core of it is the same. We're trying to achieve the same thing. Even the names of our organizations.
I know. We got to partner. We got to do some stuff together, Yeah.
No, we have to co-keynote one day. We do.
Yeah, exactly.
But here I am watching this CBC documentary, and I'm excited to see it. I have no idea that you're in it. And
I didn't know either.
Yeah, and I turned it on. I think your face was one of the. I think I showed up first, and then you were second or something at the beginning. But right away, I was like, "That's Andrea." It was really fun to be a part of that. I think if anyone who's watching this has not seen it, go to cbc.gem or gem.cbc.ca, excuse me, and that is a really useful show. Not just the bipolar episode, all the episodes. They're well done. And it really helps you to talk about some things that maybe are a little uncomfortable to talk about. And it's honest, it's fun, and it's very, very real as well. Yeah. It was a really fun experience. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Shed some light on some very serious topics, but makes it lighter and more accessible. And it brings even like the funny moments in. I really love it. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here we are, a little over half an hour. So I just wanted to thank everybody for tuning in. We get quite a few people looking after the fact. So please share on your Facebook, on your social. That would be really wonderfully appreciated. And thank you, Jason, so much for joining me today. And everybody have a beautiful day. But before we go, Jason, do you have any inspiring words for people who are struggling right now?
Yes. Sometimes the light at the end of the tunnel can be very small and very far away. And in those moments, the way that I've always thought about it is it's still there. If you can see any light at the end of the tunnel, you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And if you can't see it, you keep putting one foot in front of the other, because you will see it. I really believe that the most important thing for anyone dealing with anything, whether it's just poor mental health because of COVID and stress and all of these things, or it's an actual mental illness, the most important thing is perseverance. We just have to keep going. Don't quit, don't give up, and there is hope. Absolutely, there is always hope.
I love that. Please stay on the stream, Jason, so I can thank you personally after the show. And everybody, thank you so much, and make sure you have a beautiful day. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.